Maya-chan pressed her face against the cool glass of the observation deck, watching Earth shrink to a pale blue dot behind them. The starship Meridian hummed with the steady rhythm of its fusion engines, carrying 3,000 passengers toward the Kepler 442 system. At 26, she was embarking on the journey of a lifetime, a 5-year assignment as a xenobiology researcher at humanity's newest colony. The excitement she'd felt during launch 3 weeks ago had faded into something quieter, more uncertain. The reality of leaving everything behind was settling in like sediment in still water. Her parents, her friends, her small apartment in Berkeley with its view of the bay, all of it was now 4 light years and growing more distant with each passing day. First time heading to the outer colonies? Maya turned to find an elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes standing beside her. The woman wore the simple gray uniform of a civilian passenger, but something in her bearing suggested experience with long journeys. Is it that obvious? Maya managed a small smile. The woman chuckled. We all get it around week 3. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, retired Navy medical officer. Made this trip twice before, back when the colonies were just research outposts. Maya-chan, xenobiology. They shook hands, and Maya felt some of her tension ease. How do you handle it, being so far from home? Dr. Hartwell's expression grew thoughtful. You learn that home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's the people you're with, the work you do, the connections you make. Speaking of which, she gestured toward the ship's central hub. There's a little cafe on Deck 7. Nothing fancy, but it's become quite the gathering spot. Might be worth checking out. Maya thanked her and made her way through the ship's corridors. The Meridian was one of the newer colony ships, designed for comfort during the long journey. Wide passages, artificial gravity that felt almost natural, and viewing ports that kept passengers connected to the stars outside. The cafe Dr. Hartwell mentioned was tucked into a corner of the ship's recreational level. Cosmic Grounds read the hand-painted sign above the entrance. Inside, the lighting was warm and inviting, designed to simulate evening on Earth. A few dozen tables filled the space, most occupied by small groups of passengers talking quietly over coffee and simple meals. Maya found an empty table near the back and settled in with her tablet, intending to review research files for her upcoming assignment. The barista, a young man with an easy smile, brought her a cup of something that almost tasted like the coffee she remembered from home. As she worked, she became aware of the conversations around her. A group of engineers discussing the challenges of setting up infrastructure on a world with different gravity. 2 teachers planning curriculum for the colony's first school. A family with teenagers trying to stay positive about leaving their friends behind. Everyone here was starting over, she realized. They were all taking the same leap into the unknown. Excuse me, is this seat taken? Maya looked up to see a woman about her own age, holding a cup of tea and looking hesitant. She had dark skin, braided hair, and wore the blue uniform of ship's crew. Please sit, Maya said, closing her tablet. I'm Maya. Zara Okafor, communications officer. Zara settled into the chair across from her. I've seen you in here a few times, but didn't want to intrude. You always look so focused on your work. Probably too focused, Maya admitted. I tend to bury myself in research when I'm nervous. Nervous about the colony? Maya nodded. 5 years is a long time. What if I don't fit in? What if the work isn't what I expected? What if? She stopped herself. Sorry, I don't usually share my anxieties with strangers. We're not strangers, Zara said simply. We're neighbors. For the next 5 years, anyway. Maybe longer if you decide to stay. That thought hadn't really occurred to Maya. The initial contract was for 5 years, but many colonists chose to make their new world permanent. The idea both thrilled and terrified her. Tell me about communications, Maya said, eager to shift focus from her own worries. What's it like keeping 3,000 people connected across interstellar space? Zara's face lit up. It's incredible, actually. We're carrying humanity's most advanced quantum communication array. real-time messages to Earth until we're about 6 months out, then increasing delays until we reach the colony. But once we're there, we'll be part of a network spanning multiple star systems. You love it, Maya observed. Idol. There's something magical about being the voice that connects worlds. When I was growing up in Lagos, I used to listen to radio broadcasts from all over Earth. Different languages, different cultures, all sharing stories and music and news. Now I get to do that on a galactic scale. They talked for over an hour. Zara shared stories from her previous missions, while Maya described her research into alien ecosystems. When Zara finally had to return to duty, Maya felt lighter somehow. The universe seemed a little less vast, a little more welcoming. Over the following weeks, Maya made the cafe a regular stop. She'd work there most evenings and gradually became familiar with the other regulars. There was Chun Wei, a colony administrator who always sat at the corner table working through supply manifests. Sarah and David Martinez, a married couple who were both geologists, often spent their evenings playing chess. Dr. Amari Jackson, a physician preparing to run the colony's medical center, usually had his nose buried in medical journals. The cafe became more than just a place to get coffee. It was a community in miniature, a preview of the society they were all traveling toward. Maya began to understand what Dr. Hartwell had meant about home being more than a place. One evening, she was deep in a research paper about silicon-based biochemistry when someone cleared their throat nearby. She looked up to see a man standing beside her table, tall, probably in his 40s, with graying hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. He wore civilian clothes, but something about him suggested military background. Dr. Chun, I am James Morrison. I was hoping I might have a word with you. Maya gestured to the empty chair, curious. She'd noticed Morrison in the cafe before. He usually sat alone, drinking coffee and watching the other passengers with observant eyes. He had the look of someone carrying weight on his shoulders. I understand you're heading to Kepler 442 as a xenobiology researcher, Morrison said after settling into his chair. That's right. Are you familiar with the colony? You could say that. I helped establish the initial outpost there 8 years ago. Military advance team. His expression darkened slightly. I'm heading back now as a civilian consultant. Maya leaned forward, interested. What's it like? The world itself. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, seeming to weigh his words carefully. Beautiful. Challenging. The gravity's about 15% lighter than Earth, which takes some getting used to. The star is a K-type, so the light has a slightly orange tint. Makes everything look like perpetual autumn. And the native life? That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. Morrison glanced around, then lowered his voice. The preliminary reports don't tell the whole story. There are complexities that the colonial administration hasn't fully disclosed to incoming researchers. A chill ran down Maya's spine. What kind of complexities? The ecosystem is more interconnected than we initially realized. What we thought were separate species turn out to be different life phases of the same organisms. And they seem to respond to human presence in ways we're still trying to understand. Before Maya could ask more questions, Morrison's attention shifted to something behind her. His posture straightened, and his expression became carefully neutral. Daddy. Maya turned to see a little girl approaching their table, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with Morrison's gray eyes and light brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore a child-sized jumpsuit in bright blue and carried a worn stuffed animal that looked like it might once have been a bear. Hey there, sweetheart, Morrison said, his entire demeanor changing as he smiled at the child. Maya, this is my daughter Emma. Emma, this is Dr. Chun. Hi, Emma said shyly, then looked at her father. Are you coming back to our room soon? I finished my homework. In just a few minutes, okay? Why don't you say hello to Zara first? Morrison nodded toward the counter, where the communications officer was chatting with the barista. Emma's face brightened, and she skipped off toward the front of the cafe. Morrison watched her go with an expression of pure love mixed with something that might have been worry. She's beautiful, Maya said. She's everything. Morrison replied simply. Her mother died 3 years ago. Cancer. Emma, and I've been on our own since then. I'm sorry for your loss. Morrison nodded his thanks. The colony represents a fresh start for both of us. Clean air, open spaces, a chance for Emma to grow up somewhere away from. He trailed off. Away from what? The memories. The reminders. Sarah, my wife, she was military too. We served together. Everything on Earth reminds Emma of her mother. Morrison's voice was carefully controlled. The colony offers a chance to build new memories instead of being haunted by old ones. Maya understood. She was running towards something new. Morrison and Emma were running away from something painful. Both motivations were equally valid. What you mentioned earlier, Maya said carefully, about the ecosystem complexities. Is that something I should be concerned about? Morrison glanced toward Emma, who was now sitting at the counter sharing her stuffed bear's adventures with an amused Zara. Not concerned exactly, but prepared. The colonial administration tends to emphasize the opportunities while downplaying the challenges. They want people to be excited about the new world, not worried about potential complications. But as a researcher, I need to know what I'm really walking into. Exactly. Morrison pulled out his tablet and transferred a file to Maya's device. Personal observations from my time there. Nothing classified, but more detailed than the official reports. The native life isn't hostile, but it's reactive. Changes in response to our presence in ways we're still cataloging. Maya accepted the file gratefully. Thank you. This could be incredibly valuable for my research. Just promise me something, Morrison said seriously. If you discover something that could affect the colony's safety, especially where children are concerned, you'll be the first to know, Maya assured him. Emma returned to their table, dragging a chair from a nearby table. Zara said, I could sit with you guys for a little while. She's going to show me how the communication array works tomorrow. That's very nice of her, Morrison said, helping his daughter settle into the chair. What did you think of the ship today? As Emma launched into an enthusiastic description of her discovery of the ship's small arboretum, Maya watched the interaction between father and daughter. Despite whatever pain Morrison carried from his past, his love for Emma was evident in every gesture, every patient response to her chatter. Dr. Maya, Emma said suddenly, turning to face her. Daddy says you study alien animals. Have you ever seen any? Not yet, Maya admitted. I've studied pictures and videos, but I've never seen living alien creatures in person. That's one of the things I'm most excited about when we reach the colony. Are they scary? Maya glanced at Morrison, who nodded encouragingly. Some people think anything different might be scary, she said carefully. But I think they're probably just different. Like how a cat is different from a dog, but neither one is scary once you understand them. Emma nodded solemnly. Daddy says understanding things makes them less frightening. Your daddy is very smart. I know, Emma said matter-of-factly, making Morrison chuckle. They spent another hour in the cafe, with Emma asking increasingly creative questions about alien life, while Morrison shared more practical details about life on the colony. By the time they said goodnight, Maya felt like she'd gained not just information about her destination, but 2 new friends for the journey. Walking back to her quarters, Maya reflected on how much her perspective had changed since that first lonely evening by the observation deck. The ship no longer felt like a transport carrying her away from home. It felt like a temporary community, full of people with their own stories, hopes, and fears. Her tablet chimed with an incoming message from Earth. She opened it to find a video message from her parents, sent 2 weeks ago and just now reaching the ship. Her mother's face filled the screen, standing in their kitchen with morning light streaming through the windows. Isuat Farat. We hope you're settling in well on your journey. Your father wanted me to tell you that the research team at Berkeley published your final paper on extremophile adaptation. It's getting quite a bit of attention in the journals. Maya smiled, feeling the warmth of connection across the light years. Her mother continued with news from home. Her father's latest photography project, updates on family friends, gossip from the university. Ordinary life continuing in her absence. As the message ended, Maya realized she wasn't as homesick as she'd been a few weeks ago. She missed her parents, certainly, but she was also genuinely excited about the work ahead, the people she was traveling with, and the world waiting for them at journey's end. She thought about Morrison's file, still unopened on her tablet. Tomorrow she would review his observations about the colony's ecosystem, begin preparing for the research challenges ahead. But tonight, she felt something she hadn't expected when this journey began, a sense of belonging to this temporary community of travelers, all making their way toward uncertain but promising futures. The ship hummed around her, carrying them all deeper into the galaxy, toward whatever waited among alien stars. Maya fell asleep thinking about Emma's questions, Morrison's warnings, and Zara's stories about connecting distant worlds. For the first time since leaving Earth, the future felt more exciting than frightening. 3 months remained until they reached Kepler 442. 3 months to prepare, to learn, to build the relationships that would sustain them in their new home. As Maya drifted off to sleep, she was already looking forward to tomorrow evening at the cafe, to the ongoing conversations that were slowly weaving them all together into something larger than the sum of their individual journeys. Outside her small portal, the stars wheeled slowly past, ancient light marking their progress toward humanity's newest foothold among the cosmos. The weeks that followed brought Maya deeper into the ship's rhythms and relationships. She established a routine that centered around her evening visits to cosmic grounds, where she'd found an informal community that made the vast ship feel more like home. The cafe had become a gathering place where passengers shared expertise, concerns, and dreams about their destination. Maya had finally opened Morrison's file on the Kepler 442 ecosystem, and what she found was both fascinating and concerning. His detailed observations suggested that the native life forms exhibited coordinated responses to human settlement that went beyond simple environmental adaptation. Plants seemed to alter their growth patterns in response to human infrastructure, while the local equivalent of insects changed their behavior around human settlements in ways that suggested some form of communication between species. It's like the whole ecosystem is watching us, Morrison had explained during one of their conversations. Not hostile, but aware. Responsive. We'd change something, and within days the local life would adapt in ways that seemed almost intentional. Maya was deep in reviewing his data when Zara slid into the seat across from her, looking unusually troubled. "Rough day?" Maya asked, closing her tablet to give her friend her full attention. "Communications issue," Zara said, stirring her tea absently. "We lost contact with the Kepler 442 colony about 6 hours ago. Could be solar interference from their star, could be equipment failure on their end." But you don't think so?" Zara shook her head. "The pattern doesn't match natural interference. And our last communication included some concerning reports from the colony administration." Maya felt a familiar chill. "What kind of reports?" "Agricultural problems, mostly. Crop yields declining despite optimal growing conditions. Some of the livestock showing behavioral changes. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to worry the colonial governor." "Has Morrison heard about this?" "He was in the communication center when we lost contact. He didn't say much, but I could tell he wasn't surprised." Zara leaned forward. "Maya, what aren't they telling us about this place we're going to?" Before Maya could respond, Emma appeared beside their table, her usual bright energy subdued. She was carrying her stuffed bear and looked like she'd been crying. "Hi, Emma," Maya said gently. "Are you okay?" "Daddy's in a meeting with the ship captain," Emma said, settling into an empty chair. "He looked worried when he left." "Are we in trouble?" Zara and Maya exchanged glances. "How much did you explain to an 8-year-old about potential problems with their destination?" "Sometimes adults have to discuss complicated things about where we're going," Maya said carefully. "Your daddy knows a lot about the colony, so the captain probably wanted his advice about something. Is it about the bad things happening on the planet?" Both women stared at Emma in surprise. "What bad things?" Zara asked. Emma hugged her bear tighter. "I heard Daddy talking to Dr. Harrison yesterday. They said the plants there are acting strange, and some of the animals too, and that the people who live there now are having problems growing food. Did you understand what they meant by the plants acting strange? Maya asked, shifting into researcher mode despite herself. They said the plants were moving when they weren't supposed to move, and that they were growing in places where people didn't want them to grow. Emma's voice was small. Are we going somewhere dangerous? Maya looked at this young girl, so far from Earth, completely dependent on the adults around her to make safe choices, and felt a wave of protective anger. Emma deserved to know the truth about their destination, but she also deserved reassurance. Emma, she said firmly, your daddy is one of the smartest, most careful people I've ever met. If there was real danger waiting for us, he would find a way to keep you safe. That's what parents do. But what if there are problems he can't fix? Then, I'll have help, Zara added. From Dr. Maya, from me, from all the other adults on this ship who care about you. We're all going to this new world together, which means we'll face any problems together too. Emma nodded slowly, seeming to absorb this. Can I stay here until Daddy comes back? Of course, Maya said. Want to help me with some research? I'm studying the animals on our new planet, and I could use an assistant. For the next hour, Maya showed Emma pictures and videos from the Kepler 442 colony, carefully selecting footage that would be interesting rather than concerning. They watched native creatures that looked like a cross between deer and large rabbits grazing in amber-colored grass, and studied trees that grew in spiral patterns unlike anything on Earth. They're beautiful, Emma breathed, watching a flock of local flying creatures that moved in perfect synchronization through the orange-tinted sky. They look like they're dancing. That's exactly what it looks like, Maya agreed. Scientists call it flocking behavior, but you're right, it does look like a dance. Emma was quiet for a moment, studying the footage. Dr. Maya, do you think they're like us? The animals on the new planet. It was such an innocent question, but it cut straight to the heart of Maya's concerns about Morrison's reports. How did you explain to a child that the relationship between humans and alien life might be more complicated than simple coexistence? I think they'll be curious about us, Maya said carefully, just like we're curious about them. And I think if we're respectful and careful, we can learn to live together peacefully. Daddy says that's what he wants too. A peaceful place where we can be happy. Your daddy is right. That's what we all want. Morrison appeared at their table about 20 minutes later, looking tired but relieved to find Emma safe and occupied. He settled into the remaining chair and accepted a coffee from the attentive barista. How was your meeting? Maya asked. Productive. We've re-established contact with the colony. The communication blackout was due to equipment failure, not anything more concerning. Morrison's tone was carefully neutral, but Maya caught the look he exchanged with Zara. What about the agricultural problems Emma mentioned? Zara asked quietly. Morrison's expression tightened slightly. She has excellent hearing, he said, ruffling Emma's hair. And, yes, there are some challenges with crop adaptation. Nothing that can't be solved with proper research and adjustment. Adaptation to what? Maya pressed. Morrison glanced at Emma, who was absorbed in the tablet Maya had let her used to browse through more wildlife footage. The native soil microorganisms are more complex than initially assessed. They're not harmful, but they interact with Earth crops in unexpected ways. Maya understood the subtext. The living ecosystem was changing their food sources, probably the same way it was affecting other aspects of human settlement. Is this something my research could help with? Absolutely. In fact, the colonial administration specifically requested that incoming xenobiology researchers focus on ecosystem integration. They want to understand how to work with the native life, rather than trying to replace it. That sounded reasonable enough, but Maya sensed there was more to the story. What aren't you telling me? Morrison was quiet for a long moment, watching his daughter scroll through images of alien wildlife. The ecosystem seems to respond to human emotional states, he said finally, his voice low. Areas where people are stressed or unhappy show more aggressive plant growth, more pest activity. Areas where people are content see more beneficial adaptations. Maya started to say impossible, then stopped. On an alien world with an ecosystem that had evolved completely independently of Earth, who was to say what was possible? It sounds like science fiction, Morrison agreed. But the correlation is too strong to ignore. Happy settlements thrive. Struggling settlements face increasing environmental pressure. And our arrival represents 1,500 new people, many of whom are already stressed about leaving Earth behind, Zara added, understanding the implications. Exactly. Morrison looked directly at Maya. Your research could be crucial not just for understanding the ecosystem, but for helping our people adapt emotionally as well as practically. Emma looked up from the tablet. Are we going to be happy there, Daddy? Morrison's expression softened as he focused on his daughter. I think we are, sweetheart. We're going to work very hard to make sure of it. The conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the ship's communication system. Attention passengers. Captain Rodriguez will be addressing all passengers in the main auditorium at 2000 hours regarding our approach to the Kepler 442 system. Attendance is recommended for all colonists. Maya checked the time. They had an hour before the captain's announcement. Around them, the cafe buzzed with speculation about what the captain might say. Want to grab dinner before the meeting? Morrison asked. The three of us, he clarified, including Maya with a gesture. They made their way to one of the ship's communal dining areas, where the evening meal was already being served. The Meridian prided itself on maintaining Earth-standard nutrition despite the constraints of space travel, and tonight's offering of reconstituted protein with vegetables and grain actually smelled appetizing. As they ate, Emma chattered about her discovery of the ship's educational programs and her excitement about starting school on the colony. Maya marveled at the child's resilience. Despite the uncertainty surrounding their destination, Emma remained optimistic about the adventure ahead. Dr. Maya, Emma said suddenly, when we get to the planet, will you show me the real animals? Not just pictures. If your daddy says it's okay, I'd love to, Maya replied. Though we'll have to be very careful at first, while we're all learning about them. I'll be careful, Emma promised solemnly. Daddy taught me how to be quiet and respectful around animals. Your daddy taught you well, Maya said, smiling at Morrison. After dinner, they joined the stream of passengers making their way to the main auditorium. The large space was filling quickly, with families claiming seats together and smaller groups clustering near friends they'd made during the journey. Maya noticed Dr. Hartwell sitting with a group of other retired military officers, while Chinwei had claimed a seat near the front with other colonial administrators. Captain Rodriguez took the stage precisely at 2000 hours. She was a compact woman in her 50s with silver hair and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to command. Maya had seen her around the ship, but never heard her speak publicly. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now 43 days from arrival at Kepler 442. The captain began without preamble. I want to take this opportunity to update you on our destination and discuss preparations for planetary insertion. She activated a holographic display that showed their target system, an orange K-type star with 6 planets, the fourth of which was highlighted as their destination. Kepler 442b is a terrestrial world approximately 1.3 times Earth's mass, with a 28-hour day and seasonal cycles similar to Earth's due to its axial tilt. The existing colony of approximately 8,000 people is well established and eager to welcome new arrivals. The display showed images of the colonial settlements, clusters of prefabricated buildings surrounded by agricultural areas, connected by roads that wound through landscape that looked almost familiar except for the orange tint from the alien star. I want to address some concerns that have been raised about agricultural challenges at the colony, Captain Rodriguez continued. It's true that Earth crops require adaptation to local conditions, but this is normal for any new world. Colonial agricultural specialists are working with the existing ecosystem rather than trying to replace it, and early results are promising. Maya noticed that the captain's language was carefully chosen. Early results are promising could mean almost anything. Each family will be assigned temporary housing upon arrival, while permanent residences are constructed. School facilities are operational for children, and medical facilities meet Earth standard requirements. Work assignments will begin within 1 week of arrival to help new colonists integrate quickly into colonial society. The captain opened the floor for questions, and hands shot up around the auditorium. Most queries were practical: housing assignments, medical care, communication with Earth. But then Dr. Hartwell stood up. "Captain, can you comment on reports of ecosystem instability affecting colonial operations?" The auditorium grew very quiet. Captain Rodriguez paused before answering. "The ecosystem on Kepler 442b is complex and still being studied. What some might interpret as instability, others see as adaptation. The native life is not hostile to human presence, but it is reactive. Learning to work with these reactions rather than against them is part of the ongoing colonial project." It was a diplomatic non-answer, Maya realized. But Dr. Hartwell wasn't finished. Are incoming colonists being provided with adequate information about these ecosystem reactions? Should we be concerned about safety, particularly for children? Maya felt Emma tense beside her. Morrison put a protective arm around his daughter's shoulders. "Every precaution is being taken to ensure colonists' safety," Captain Rodriguez said firmly. "The existing colonial administration has 8 years of experience managing human ecosystem interactions. New arrivals will receive comprehensive briefings and will be integrated gradually into activities that involve direct ecosystem contact." Another hand went up. Chun Wei, the administrator Maya had noticed in the cafe. "What's the current food security situation? Are we bringing adequate supplies to support the existing population while agricultural adaptation continues?" "The Meridian carries sufficient supplies for 6 months of full nutrition for all passengers, plus emergency reserves," the captain replied. "This timeline allows for proper integration of new agricultural techniques and ecosystem management protocols." Maya noticed what the captain wasn't saying. They were carrying 6 months of supplies because the existing colony couldn't reliably feed the additional population. That suggested the agricultural problems were more serious than anyone wanted to admit publicly. The questions continued for another half hour, covering everything from communication delays with Earth to waste management on the colony. Throughout it all, Maya sensed an undercurrent of carefully managed information, answers designed to reassure without fully informing. When the meeting ended, the auditorium emptied slowly as passengers discussed what they'd heard. Maya walked with Morrison and Emma back toward their quarters, all three lost in thought. "The captain didn't really answer the important questions, did she?" Emma said suddenly. Both adults looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Morrison asked. "She said the ecosystem was reactive, but she didn't say what that means. And she said they were learning to work with it, but she didn't say if they were succeeding." Emma looked up at her father with serious eyes. "She was using words that sound nice, but don't tell us what's really happening." Maya was impressed. Emma might be 8, but she had a clear understanding of how adults sometimes obscure difficult truths. "You're very observant," Maya told her. "What do you think we should do with that information?" Emma considered this carefully. "I think we should ask the right questions when we get there and pay attention to what we see, not just what people tell us." "That's exactly right," Morrison said, pride evident in his voice. "And that's why we're lucky to have Dr. Maya with us. Her job is to ask the right questions and find the real answers." As they reached the corridor where their paths diverged, Emma surprised Maya by giving her a quick hug. "Thank you for explaining things to me today," she said, "and for letting me help with your research." "Thank you for being such a good research assistant," Maya replied. "I have a feeling you're going to be very helpful when we start studying the real animals on our new planet." Watching Morrison and Emma continue down the corridor toward their quarters, Maya felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. These people were trusting her not just to study alien life forms, but to help them understand how to live safely alongside those life forms. And if Morrison's observations were correct, that safety might depend as much on human emotional adaptation as on scientific understanding. Back in her own quarters, Maya pulled up her research files and began making notes. Tomorrow she would start reaching out to other researchers on the ship, sharing Morrison's data, and building a more complete picture of what they were really flying toward. Because Emma was right, they needed to ask the right questions and find the real answers, not just accept reassuring words that concealed difficult truths. The ship hummed around her as it continued its steady journey toward an uncertain future. Outside her portal, the stars that had once seemed distant and cold now felt like markers guiding them toward something that might be wonderful or challenging or both. But whatever waited for them at Kepler 442, Maya was determined that they would face it with clear eyes and honest understanding. 6 weeks remained until arrival. 6 weeks to prepare not just for a new world, but for the complex dance between human hopes and alien reality that would determine whether their colonial dream became a sustainable future or another cautionary tale about the hubris of interstellar expansion. The final weeks of their journey to Kepler 442 passed in a blur of preparation, nervous excitement, and growing anticipation. Maya had spent the time building a network of researchers and colonists who shared her concerns about the incomplete information they'd been given about their destination. What she discovered painted a complex picture of both opportunity and challenge. Dr. Sarah Martinez, one of the geologists Maya had befriended, had shared data suggesting that the planet's mineral composition was more reactive than initially reported. The soil chemistry changes in response to human agriculture, she'd explained during one of their evening conversations in Cosmic Grounds. Not just adapting to our crops, but actively modifying itself based on what we plant. Chen Wei, the colonial administrator, had been more direct. They're downplaying the adjustment challenges because they need skilled people like us to make this work, he told Maya privately. The colony is stable, but struggling. Our arrival represents either the reinforcement that turns things around or additional strain on systems that are already stretched thin. Even Dr. Jackson, the incoming medical officer, had concerns. I've been reviewing health reports from the existing colonists, he confided. Nothing dangerous, but there are physiological adaptations happening that suggest the human body is responding to the alien environment in ways we don't fully understand yet. Through it all, Maya had continued her evening conversations with Morrison and Emma. The little girl had become an unofficial mascot for their small group of concerned researchers, her innocent questions often cutting straight to the heart of issues the adults were dancing around. Dr. Maya, Emma had asked just the night before, if the planet is changing because we're there, are we changing because the planet is there? It was a question that kept Maya awake that night, staring out at the orange star that was growing noticeably brighter as they approached their destination. Now, on their final morning in space, Maya made her way to Cosmic Grounds one last time. The cafe was more crowded than usual, with passengers gathering to share their excitement and anxiety about arrival. The viewing ports showed Kepler 442b as a visible disk now, blue-green with swirling white clouds, beautiful and alien against the star field. Morrison was already there with Emma, both nursing cups of coffee. Well, Emma's was mostly milk with a splash of coffee-flavored beverage. They looked tired but ready, with the practical air of people who had made this transition before. Big day, Maya said, settling into what had become her usual chair. The biggest, Emma agreed, her excitement barely contained despite the early hour. Daddy says we'll be breathing real air from a real planet before dinner time. Real air that might smell different from Earth air, Morrison cautioned gently. Remember what we talked about. Everything is going to be a little different at first. But different doesn't mean bad, Emma recited dutifully. Different just means new. Maya smiled at the child's optimism. Over the past months, Emma had become a source of hope for many of the adult passengers, reminding them all that adaptation could be an adventure rather than just a challenge. Zara appeared with her own coffee and settled into the last chair at their table. Communication with the colony is crystal clear now, she reported. Governor Martinez sends his welcome and says the landing facilities are ready for us. Any update on the agricultural situation? Maya asked. Better than expected, actually. The spring plantings are showing improved yields using integrated native earth hybrid techniques. Zara paused, though the definition of improved might be relative, meaning they're growing enough food to sustain the current population plus about half of our incoming group. The rest of us will be on ship supplies while the next planting cycle gets established. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. That's actually better than I expected when we left Earth. The colony has made real progress in the past year. Progress at what cost? Maya wondered aloud. If the ecosystem responds to human emotional states the way you described, what does that mean for people who are struggling with food security? That's one of the first things we need to research, Morrison agreed. The relationship between human stress and environmental response could be the key to long-term colonial success. Their conversation was interrupted by a ship-wide announcement. All passengers, please prepare for orbital insertion. We will be entering Kepler 442b orbit in 30 minutes. Landing assignments will begin in 4 hours. Emma practically vibrated with excitement. We're really here. We're really going to walk on an alien planet. Yes, we are, Maya said, feeling her own excitement building despite her concerns. And you're going to see all those animals we studied, except this time they'll be real and alive and moving around. And I get to help you study them, right? If your father approves, you're my official research assistant, Maya confirmed, making Emma glow with pride. As the ship settled into orbit around their new world, Maya found herself pressed against the viewing ports with dozens of other passengers, all getting their first real look at their future home. Kepler 442b was beautiful. Swirls of blue ocean and green-brown continents under white clouds, with a distinctive orange tint that the K-type star gave to everything. There, Morrison pointed to a cluster of lights on the main continent's coast. That's New Geneva, the primary settlement. And those lines extending inland are the agricultural zones. Maya could make out the geometric patterns of human agriculture cutting through what appeared to be native forest. Even from orbit, it was clear the human settlement represented a small but definite change to the planet's natural patterns. It's so big, Emma breathed, her face pressed against the clear aluminum. And so beautiful. Do you think the animals know we're coming? I think they'll figure it out pretty quickly, Maya said, thinking about Morrison's reports of ecosystem responsiveness. The landing process was remarkably smooth. The Meridian had been designed for planetary insertion, and, within hours of reaching orbit, passenger shuttles were beginning their descent to New Geneva's landing field. Maya, Morrison, and Emma were assigned to the same shuttle, along with Zara and about 30 other passengers. As their shuttle descended through the atmosphere, Maya got her first close look at the alien landscape. The forests were denser than they'd appeared from orbit, with trees that grew in spiral patterns unlike anything on Earth. The agricultural areas showed a patchwork of Earth crops interspersed with native plants, creating a quilt-like pattern that suggested integration rather than replacement. The air smells different, Emma announced as the shuttle's doors opened onto the landing field. She was right. Maya's first breath of alien air carried scents that were almost familiar, but not quite. Something like pine mixed with cinnamon and an underlying earthiness that was completely foreign. The gravity felt lighter, making each step feel slightly bouncy, and the orange-tinted sunlight gave everything a warm, autumn-like quality. Governor Martinez was there to greet the new arrivals, a woman in her 50s with graying hair and the practical bearing of someone accustomed to solving problems. She welcomed them warmly and efficiently assigned temporary housing while permanent quarters were prepared. "Dr. Chun," she said when Maya introduced herself, "we've been eagerly anticipating your arrival. The ecosystem integration project could really benefit from your expertise." "I'm looking forward to getting started," Maya replied, "though I understand there have been some challenges with the native life responses to human presence." Governor Martinez's expression became carefully neutral. Every colonial project faces adaptation challenges. We're learning to work with this world's unique characteristics rather than trying to impose Earth solutions. It was another diplomatic non-answer, Maya realized, but she sensed this wasn't the time or place for detailed questions. Morrison and Emma were assigned housing in the same residential cluster as Maya, a group of comfortable prefabricated units surrounded by gardens that mixed Earth and alien plants. The integration was immediately obvious. Earth tomatoes growing alongside native vines that produced blue-green fruit, terrestrial grass interspersed with the amber-colored native ground cover. It's like someone couldn't decide which plants they wanted, so they planted everything, Emma observed with 8-year-old clarity. That might not be far from the truth, Maya murmured, already making mental notes about the integration patterns. Their first dinner on Kepler 442b was served in the community dining hall, a large building in the center of the residential area. The meal included both familiar Earth foods and local dishes that incorporated native ingredients. Maya tried a salad that included the blue-green fruit Emma had noticed, finding it surprisingly sweet with a slight mineral aftertaste. "What do you think?" asked Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a botanist who'd been on the colony for 3 years. She joined their table along with several other established colonists eager to meet the new arrivals. "Interesting flavor," Maya said diplomatically. "How did you determine it was safe for human consumption?" "Careful testing and gradual introduction. But, honestly, the native plants seem to want to be compatible with us. We've found very few that are actually toxic to humans, and many that provide useful nutrients." "Want to be compatible?" Maya questioned the phrasing. Dr. Tanaka exchanged glances with her colleagues. "You'll see what I mean once you start your research. The ecosystem here is responsive, adaptive. It's like the planet is trying to find ways to work with human presence rather than simply tolerating it." After dinner, Morrison suggested they take a walk around the settlement. Emma skipped ahead of them, marveling at the alien landscape visible in the orange twilight. The settlement was larger than Maya had expected, with residential areas, workshops, laboratories, and agricultural zones all connected by paths that wound naturally through the landscape. "Notice anything about the layout?" Morrison asked as they walked. Maya studied the settlement patterns. It follows natural contours rather than imposing geometric grids, like it was designed to minimize disruption to existing landscape. "Exactly, and that wasn't the original plan. When I helped establish the advance outpost, we laid out a standard colonial grid pattern. Within 6 months, we had to redesign everything because the native plants kept trying to overgrow the straight-line paths and geometric agricultural plots." "Trying to overgrow them?" "That implies intention. That's what makes this place so fascinating and frustrating," Morrison said. "The ecosystem responds to human activity in ways that suggest some level of coordination, but it's not hostile. It's more like negotiation." Emma came running back to them, holding something in her cupped hands. "Look, I found a baby animal." Maya and Morrison hurried to see what she'd discovered. In Emma's palms was a small creature about the size of a hamster, with soft gray fur and large eyes. It looked like a cross between a mouse and a small monkey with delicate hands instead of paws. "Emma, you shouldn't pick up unknown animals," Morrison said, though his tone was more curious than scolding. "It didn't run away," Emma explained. "I was looking at those pretty flowers, and it just climbed right up my arm. Look, it's not scared at all." The little creature was indeed calm, sitting in Emma's hands and looking around at the humans with apparent interest rather than fear. "That's a native species we call a pocket companion," Dr. Tanaka said, appearing beside them as if she'd been watching for this encounter. "They seem to be naturally attracted to human children. We've never seen one approach an adult first, but they're incredibly gentle with kids." Maya studied the little animal. It did seem remarkably unafraid, making soft chirping sounds and occasionally reaching out one tiny hand to touch Emma's fingers. "Is it safe for her to handle?" Morrison asked. "We've never had any problems. They don't bite, they don't carry diseases that affect humans, and they seem to enjoy human contact. Some of the colonial children have essentially adopted them as pets. Can I keep it, Daddy? Emma asked hopefully. It likes me, and I promise I'll take good care of it. Morrison looked uncertain, but Maya found herself fascinated by the creature's behavior. Actually, this might be an excellent opportunity for research, she said. If Emma is willing to help me document the creature's behavior and responses, we could learn a lot about human-native species interaction. You mean I really get to be your research assistant? Emma's eyes were bright with excitement. If it's okay with your father, I think this could be very educational for all of us. Morrison considered for a long moment, then nodded. On two conditions. First, any sign that the animal is sick or unhappy, and we find a new home immediately. Second, Dr. Maya is in charge of making sure the interaction is safe and beneficial for everyone involved. I promise, Emma said solemnly. What should I call it? What about Atlas? Maya suggested, since it's helping us explore a new world. Emma grinned. Atlas it is. Hello, Atlas. Welcome to our family. As they continued their walk back toward their housing, Maya observed the interaction between Emma and the little alien creature. Atlas seemed perfectly content to ride on Emma's shoulder, occasionally chirping softly or reaching out to touch her hair. There was something almost magical about the easy acceptance between human child and alien animal. Dr. Maya, Emma said as they reached their residential cluster, I think the animals here are lonely. Atlas wasn't scared when I found him. He acted like he was hoping someone would come along. It was another one of Emma's unexpectedly insightful observations. Maya made a mental note to investigate whether there was any scientific basis for the idea that the native fauna might be seeking contact with humans. That night, Maya lay in her new bed listening to the alien sounds outside her window, rustling leaves that might have been wind or might have been native creatures, distant calls from nocturnal animals, and underneath it all a subtle humming that seemed to come from the planet itself. She thought about the events of their first day on Kepler 442b, the ecosystem that wanted to integrate rather than resist, the native plants that seemed to negotiate rather than simply adapt, the small animal that had approached a human child with trust rather than fear. Morrison's original reports had been accurate, but incomplete. This wasn't just a world where human settlement was possible. It was a world that seemed to be actively facilitating human integration. The question was whether that facilitation came with a cost, and what that cost might be. Through her window, she could see Emma's unit, where a small light glowed. The little girl was probably still awake, marveling at her new companion and planning their adventures together. For Emma, this was already home. For Maya, it was the beginning of the most important research project of her career. Outside, the alien forest hummed its subtle song under foreign stars, and Maya fell asleep thinking about the complex dance between human dreams and alien reality that would determine whether this world became humanity's greatest colonial success or its most challenging lesson in the limits of interstellar expansion. Tomorrow would bring the real work of understanding their new home. Tonight, she was content to listen to the planet's welcome song and dream about the discoveries waiting in the orange-tinted dawn of humanity's newest world. The cafe conversations were over. The real adventure was just beginning.